Welcome to Third Floor Views, a production of Chesapeake Family Life, where we talk about health, education, and living with kids. I'm your host, Janet Jefferson. Today is the kickoff of our environmental sustainability series on Third Floor Views. We are honoring Earth Day all year long, but right now we're going to focus on it this whole month of April. And the next few episodes will really focus on exciting local work that's being done in the environmental field right here in our backyard. So today we're starting off with FullFillery, and we are talking about zero waste shopping. And joining us is Rini Saha, co-founder and co-owner of FullFillery, a zero waste store. Rini is also a former high school teacher and mom and founder of the nonprofit Green Thinker DC, which is a nonprofit that educates people on how to live a zero waste lifestyle. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you.
To our viewers, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section and we will get to those as we can. All right, let's jump in. So really, let's start right at the beginning. What is a zero waste product and how does it fit into sustainability?
Well, the first thing I always tell people is that's not really, even though the movement is called zero waste, not to take it literally like that. It is actually a low waste movement. There's no way in the modern world, unless you're going to be Amish, you would actually not make waste. But at the same time, we make in the United States, we make 4 times per person. We make 4 times more trash per person. So it's possible for people in Europe and people in Canada, which is very our counterparts, to make less trash. Then we should be able to also, because our lifestyles are pretty similar to people who live in Europe and in Canada. But we just really live on a disposable. We just think it's okay to constantly get disposable, plasticware and. So trying to get people, so that's the main thing. The main thing is just, being conscious. It's not about, there are times I almost never buy plastic water bottles, but there are moments where, oh my God, I forgot it and my kids are thirsty, but, it's very rare. So.
That's helpful to know because I do think that term zero waste could be intimidating to some, especially to parents who are juggling all sorts of things. But
Yes.
you make it sound like, okay, actually, we can do this.
Yeah.
So let's dive into a little bit more about the concept. So zero waste, if the idea is that you're producing less waste, so there's less stuff to throw away at the end. One of the terms that I've heard around that concept is circular design. I was wondering if you could just explain what that is.
So that's when, I'm so glad you asked that, because I think a lot of people, one of the things we try to re-educate people at FullFillery is that recycling is mostly a failure. Except for metals, most recycling doesn't happen. Surprisingly, virgin plastic and virgin glass is just cheaper for most corporations to use and easier. When something's recycled, it's just not going to be at the same quality, and so it is better. So there's no actual, once you put it in the recycling bin, you can't make the corporations buy it. It's actually more expensive. So why would they buy it? So you can't make them. So it's a failed system in multiple ways. And we try to educate. What you really want to do is, if you're trying to write to a company to make their products recyclable, rather write to a company to make their products circular. That means right when they design, like this is something we designed. We designed a dish soap that we put in a glass jar, and it's a concentrate, and you just add it to a pump. It's not a pump, but you add it to water and it becomes thing, and then you give us back the glass jar. So the glass jar didn't go to the fake recycling and it didn't go to the landfill, right? And so we are designing something in a circular economy, meaning that in the beginning, because a lot of times we get questions all the time. People write to us all the time asking, where can I recycle my clothes? Where can I recycle my markers? And the truth is that those companies never designed those things in the first place to be recycled. So then when they get to the recycling center, this recycling center doesn't know what to do with them, because they're made with too many materials, both glass and paper. Then you have to, like if you think about like a Starbucks coffee cup, it looks like it's paper, but paper doesn't hold water liquid. They have a plastic inner code, right? And there's no way that a recycling center could pull apart that plastic code away from the paper cup. So that's what you people have to understand, that it wasn't designed in the first place. There's not, there needs to be more public pressure to actually design a product in a circular way and more than recycling.
So I have a question that I'm almost afraid to ask. So recycling is a failed system. It's not working. What happens then to all of our recycling? Like if it goes to the recycling factory, are you saying that yes, it will be then maybe dismantled and put into these other parts? But then one of your points is like, but then nobody's buying it. So then what's happening to the bulk of our recycling?
And eventually it's being either landfilled or incinerated, usually incinerated first, and then that ash is being landfilled. But recycling actually, a lot of people would argue is actually worse, because what happens, at least in Montgomery counties, will be processed in the Montgomery County, and if they can't process it, then they'll send it to Lancaster for Pennsylvania, and then Lancaster will send it somewhere else. So it's just like being shipped around, and all that shipping is costing it. And in the end, they're just landfilling it anyway. Remember, you can't actually also recycle anything that has food waste on it. So think about all that contamination when things are being just thrown into the back of the recycling truck. Somebody has definitely not cleaned their food waste out, and that is contaminating all the other recycling. So a lot of it just gets contaminated, and it's an impossible task. I mean, could you really, if you took all of the recycling from your street in 1 week, would you be able to sort all that out? There's no machine, there's no person in the world that can do at that high level. We were not meant to, as a society, be throwing things away like that. That's not how nature designed us. And the truth is, that sounds overwhelming, but if you just take the clock back 50 years, that's how people lived. It really wasn't that long ago that Coca-Cola would recollect their glass bottles, or that the milkman dropped off the things and people would carry their own bags to the grocery store, and there was no, so that wasn't that long ago. And so it's just,
we just sort of have forgotten. That's such an interesting concept. As you're right, it does sound really overwhelming, but then pointing out that that's something that we all used to do is like, oh right, totally, we can do this again. Okay, so clearly zero waste is really different from recycling. And what about though, like a lot of things that I would be like, oh, is this zero waste? Like if I'm buying like a shampoo bar instead of
we sell those
plastic bar, there you go. But the one that you're holding up right now, it's not in a little cardboard box. You have zero packaging. So I definitely want to talk about that. But if you do have some sort of like cardboard, like, is that zero waste? Like, are we recycling it? What about composting? And how does compost play into this concept? Is it like, okay, yes, we can do this? Or is it like, man, we can even do better? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Even though we don't deal with composting directly at Green Thinker, I do really, at FullFillery, but I do want to point out that one of the greatest sins that we're doing against the next generation is throwing our food waste into the landfills. Because when it goes into a landfill, I think what a lot of people don't realize is they take all the air out of the everything. So if you take air out, it becomes smaller, so they can fit more into the landfill. But air is an essential ingredient towards biodegradability. So all that food waste is now not actually biodegrading, but also it's causing methane, which is an intense greenhouse gas. But outside of that, I don't know if there's a God, but if there is a God, the plan was always to get the food back into the soil, because the soil, you borrowed the vitamin C from an orange, and that's why you got it. And now that orange peel needs to go back into the soil, because it will now get the vitamin C back. It's like nature already has a circular design. And so even though we don't do composting exactly, although some of our packaging, you're right, is compost, but I do want to point that out. If you are ever in doubt, like, with these like plant-based plastics, because plastic's normally made with petroleum, but if it's not, it's made with plants. If you're ever in doubt, like, can I put that in my compost bin? The cardboard box, can I put it in my compost bin? I would say, and as much as I hate to say this, I would just throw it away, because what you don't want to do is corrupt your compost or even your recycling. It's actually better to be sure. And as far as cardboard boxes, if the cardboard box is really just paper, absolutely, you can throw it away. But if it's white, it was probably bleached and chlorine, and then you can't throw it in compost, because chlorine will stop any kind of bacterial process.
Mm.
If it has inks that aren't soy, aren't natural. So it is kind of complicated. Anything that's in our store, because that's what we do as a zero waste store, our cardboard can be composted because the inks are not against nature. But but if you're not sure, if you feel that this thing is not, I would just throw it away. I hate to say it, but you don't want to corrupt the compost. You don't want to corrupt the recycling. So.
Okay. That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've sort of danced around this a little bit, but let's come right out. Why is pursuing zero waste so important?
It's important because you're pushing the cultural needle. When we started this store almost 2 years ago, we started at farmers markets before we have our storefront here in downtown Tacoma. We really didn't have that many vendors. There was only a few vendors calling themselves zero waste and doing that. Today we have 4 times the vendors. So that's just showing you that the cultural needle is pushing. I don't live zero waste. I pull out trash every week. I hate it. But I know that the decisions I make every time I know that if I have the choice to be zero waste, to be more zero waste, when I, when I grab my bananas or I grab my avocados, eat a lot of avocados, I never get the ones that were in the plastic bag. Even if it costs me more, I go that. And then the more you do that, what you're doing is you're pushing the cultural needle away from, so you're just being a part of the movement, because it may not feel like it when you're walking around with your water bottle, you're moving, you're showing the corporations, because they do listen to you.
Right. The power of the purse. Absolutely. What you buy will matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've talked about this a little bit. And we've said how ooh, this can feel really overwhelming, especially for families. You're a mom, you have kids. How do busy families put this into practice? How does it actually look like for you day to day to live sort of a more zero waste, really try to focus on your waste reduction?
Yeah, it is busy, but I think the number one thing that I would say people can do is actually be a minimalist. When and it actually teaches your kids things too. If you're you can only have 10 toys, then they have to make choices in their lives of what is important to them, and that actually teaches them about themselves. And also, so I think being a minimalist is because your stuff takes up time in your life. And I would say that minimalism actually gets underrated to how important it is, far more important than recycling. Even if you have to initially use landfills to get there, I think it is really important, because you can't think straight if you have too much stuff in your house. And I would just say, make your life as simple. And even your schedules, make it, I have both my kids in their activities on Mondays, and that's our day that we do activities, because it can be, we live in an overscheduled, overrun society, and people are trying to take your time all the time. And, so it's hard to find that balance, but.
That's a great tip though. Okay. What's the best way to get started for beginners? So if someone's oh, this, I hear you, I don't know where to start though. What would you suggest they do?
Come to FullFillery. That's FullFillery. We were in downtown Takoma Park. We're upstairs from Mark's Kitchen, which is a popular restaurant in Takoma Park. In our store, we everything you see has been vetted and has been thought about as much as we can. It will be as green. We only have one thing that is a petroleum product in our store, and everything else doesn't have petroleum. But there's so many, in today's world, we're as green as it gets when it comes to soaps and detergents, because we make our own, which makes us different than other zero waste stores, which we're not in competition with them, we're in concurrence with them, but we do make our own things, which makes it a little more. That's is either has to or most of being shipped to us in cardboard, but sometimes, especially things that are coming on those barges, do you have to have plastic over them? But because they're coming out. So what happens, if you're going, CVS, what happens is things, a lot of times, most of the products are coming from, South Asia, and then they're coming on these barges. So they're coming on these long trips. The barges themselves don't have a lot of CO2, but it's all those products that are on there that have a lot of CO2. And then once they hit the ports, then they're getting on these trucks and they're being driven all over the United States. The footprint is so huge. And we have such a small footprint compared to that. But I think definitely that. I think the other thing, again, I mean, even though we don't do composting, I think composting is actually very huge too. If you could just compost, that is big. If you could do it in your own backyard, there's also program. If your city doesn't do it, then there's programs in DC. If you live in the DC side, DC has drop-offs at their farmers market. Look at DC Gov's thing. Their restriction is not to have meat or dairy. But they have that. There's also commercial. If you just feel like you can't compost, there's commercial things you could subscribe to, like Compost Crew. So that's the other thing I would say.
Okay, well, that's great. That sounds like there's lots of different choices too to make this easier. Okay, so let's talk about FullFillery. I want to hear all the cool products that you guys are offering. Yeah, let's sort of hear some of your favorites.
Yeah, we definitely have some alternatives. And I want to also mention that, we talked a lot about composting and waste management, but the other thing that FullFillery does is it meets the European Union standards. One thing that people don't realize is that soaps and detergents do not legally have to disclose the chemicals that they use, especially under the word fragrance. They could just be anything. And that is really scary considering how high the cancer rates are. We are letting ourselves be exposed to all kinds of chemicals that have not been tested, and we don't know what the full length is of those things. And so that's one of the things we fully disclose. Any of our, it's on our website. It's not always on the actual product because we don't have packaging, but it is always on the website, what our actual ingredients are. But so we meet the European Union standards. The European Union is far superior to us when it comes to evaluating the soaps and detergents. They spend a whole lot more time, and they have a list of 1,000 chemicals that they do not allow in their soaps and detergents. We only have 10. There's only 10. If you were to make a soap tomorrow, there's only 10 that you weren't allowed to have. And but Europe, so we follow their standards. I just want to make sure that. But one of our great products is our shampoo bar, of course. So we talked about that a while. So you don't have to have a bottle. And again, it has all those. It's not made with those weird chemicals. One of my favorites is our dish soap. What we sell is a concentrate, and then you just add it to water. If you bring your own pump in, you can just dump it in, because we will charge you $2. So we have a reuse system, right? So we want that container back. So we will charge you $2 until you bring it back. But it's a great soap, and it won't get you cancer. That's
Winning.
I mean, win. This is a really great, this would go into a spray bottle. This is an all-purpose cleaner. And so it's just a tablet. So most of what they're shipping to you is water, right? Most cleaners, there's only like 10% that's actually the soap and the detergent, and the rest of it is water. So we have a tablet that goes into a spray bottle, and then you just add water, and that tablet becomes a really great all-purpose cleaner. This is what I give all my teachers, when I'm giving presents to the teachers for my kids' teachers, these things. We have this, which is like kind of confusing because it looks like styrofoam, but it's not. It's a plant. This is a contact sponge. And if you add water to it, it just cleans your face, exfoliates. It's really, really great. And you just throw it on, you could just throw it on the ground, actually, because it's not food, so it won't attract animals. I know that's the fear. Sometimes with composting, they'll attract animals if we don't do it right. But this won't, because it's just a plant. You can just throw it on the ground and it'll rejoin the earth. But yeah, and our toothbrush is 100%. I don't have it with me right now, but the wooden toothbrush is 100% compostable. And the bristles, because a lot of those bamboo toothbrushes will still have nylon tooth bristles like they do in the plastic ones. And so just be careful. Ours is 100% compostable. So and we have shave soap that's just soap. So a lot of ours are solid. When we have liquids, they're usually in concentrates, so you just add the water. And then we have a laundry powder, which we suggest putting in the drum and not the dispenser, because it's a powder. But you could always refill your container over and over again here.
Right.
So
do you sell container like that glass, blue glass spray bottle you were holding up? Do you sell things like that at the store?
Yeah, we sell. We sell the container, and not only that, we sell this. If let's say like this becomes bad, because it's plastic will eventually break. So you could buy the actual separately, the head or the pump of the
Amazing.
actual blue glass. Yeah. So because we know that that helps people be more zero waste, because what people sometimes tell me, the reason that came up is people like, oh, I bought the glass bottle, but eventually the spray bottle part of it broke. Do you sell that separately? And I was like, that's a brilliant idea, because that happened to me too. And I don't want to buy an
Right.
entire bottle again. So we do that. So that's something we do here. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
then could you talk a little bit about things like um, some of your sponge alternatives, and then some of your things that you can put in like your dryer balls and things like that, things that maybe people haven't heard of that are interesting products that are like what you guys do for toothpaste and things like that.
Yes, sorry. We do have toothpaste tablets. They look like a pill, and you put it in your mouth and you start chewing it. And you start kind of like chewing it as you're watering your toothbrush. By the time you put your toothbrush into your mouth, it becomes a toothpaste. And you
Amazing.
could refill that, and you would have no waste. So we have that here. We have fluoride and fluoride free. The sponges we have are either wood bristles, or they're like loofah sponge, which you could compost at the end, which, because it's loofah, loofah's a kind of plant that has like an abrasion, sort of like a sponge would. And ours is kind of flat. Once you put water on it, it becomes kind of fluffier. And so so all of our sponges are either like a wood that was finely, so it has like it has like bristles to it, or it's something like a loofah sponge. They can be. We also have the Swedish dishcloths, which can be composted at the end, but they can be rewashed over and over again. They can be rewashed for a long time before they actually even have to be put in the compost bin.
Yeah, those are definitely one of my favorites. I feel like they could be
Yeah.
used as a sponge or a paper towel, or like
Yeah.
I love them. They're the best.
Right. Yeah, and talking about that, we do have like reusable cloths for the
Oh,
paper
nice.
towels too.
And so
Yeah.
cute. So cute.
Yeah, it's so cute. And this actually rolls up after, I don't know if people will do that, but you can roll them up if you want to, after you're done with it. So so there's alternatives out there. You don't have to be perfect, but just finding those alternatives.
Do you ever do like gift baskets or sort of like beginner's kits? If someone comes in, they're like, oh, I don't even know where to begin. Do you help walk them through it, or?
We haven't. We've talked about that. We just let people choose, because everyone has different needs when they walk in. Some people are looking for a laundry detergent. Some people are looking for body soap. So it's hard to know where they want to start. So, but we haven't yet. No.
Right. So one of the things I really wanted to talk about is you were saying that you make a lot of things in-house. And when I was doing some research, I realized that you have a resident chemist, which I just thought was the coolest thing ever, being a former science teacher. So what is she working on? And you said that she'll make some, she made the dish soap and things like that, and making sure that she's doing to EU standards, which is different than a lot of the stuff that's done here in the US. What else are you making in-house?
Yeah, and she's Hungarian and she's European, and she actually worked for the, I can't say, it's not the FDA, it's like our version of the FDA or whatever. Right. She actually worked for them, so she actually had to approve the soaps and stuff. So she has a real intimate knowledge of those things. So she's not just a chemist, but she is a blessing to have on our staff, because before we were just getting vendors and to get them, but it's so good to have her understanding of reading the ingredients and understanding, if those ingredients are actually green or if they're just greenwashing.
Yeah. Oh, Rini, I think we lost you.
So it's any of the products that she actually makes herself. Evaluating the other thing. Did you hear me?
Yep, I hear you now. You're back.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what you missed. Oh yeah. So just just sum up. She doesn't just make products. She also evaluates other things that are in our shop that to make sure that they are also green.
Gotcha. So that's really, really helpful. And then one of the last things I wanted to talk about in terms of FullFillery specifically is how do you shop for them? And I know it's a little bit different. You have your storefront in Takoma Park, but then you have other options as well. And I know one thing is like, oh, can you order things online and have them delivered? But where does that fall with zero waste? But you guys have come up with some really creative solutions. So I was wondering if you just could talk a little bit about how someone shops some of your products.
Well, they could definitely come to the store. We encourage that the most, because then they can see it for themselves and see what they want. But we do have delivery just for Takoma Park only as of right now. But I'm sorry, we actually do have one more delivery. So we have also, for people who are subscribed to Plastic Tree, Plastic Tree is another zero waste business in DC, which is for people who they pay for their recycling to go with Plastic Tree rather than the city. And that's because Plastic Tree will actually take the containers and sell them back to either corporations or to small businesses. And we use them to get some containers. And so they have agreed, if you're a member of theirs, one of the benefits is that you'll get delivery. They'll deliver our products. So that is one way we get delivery. But the other way is that we deliver only to Takoma Park, and we also have a lockbox that's about 2 miles from Takoma Co-op. And so you can just pick it up from there. So if our hours don't work for you, first of all, we're always open to appointments. So don't be afraid to call us or reach to us through social media or email us. Most of us live right here in Takoma, and we're always coming into the store, even the hours aren't even available. So if hours can't meet, you're welcome to make an appointment. But the Plastic Tree does use electric bikes. We don't do that for our own Takoma Park deliveries, but we also live in Takoma Park and often just walk it through people's houses, because they literally somebody asked for delivery that was like a street away from the shop. I just walked it over. So it's, when it comes to environmentalism, if you stress yourself out to do everything, you're going to fail, right? So what we promise you is that we'll be as package free as possible. And then our delivery often is very green, but that's not, part of our promise, you know what I'm saying? Right. And I have an electric car, so it's never not a green delivery, but
right.
That's, yeah.
For people who don't live near Takoma Park, if they live in other parts of Maryland, and then also just even for locals that are right here in Takoma Park, what are some other resources that you recommend? Either organizations that you really like, or I don't know, books to read, or whatever you feel like is useful in terms of helping people head in a zero waste direction.
Well, I've talked about Plastic Tree. I've talked about Compost Crew. That's a really big one. There's also, what's another one? The Community Forklift, which is in Hyattsville. That is a really great store for reuse for house renovations. And so when when you have to, you have a bunch of tiles you don't know what to do with, give it to them, donate it to them, or maybe even go to them first if you need a chandelier, so because they're about reusing, because there's so much waste in house renovations and house building, and they're trying to fight that. So that's a really great organization also. And the co-op, the Takoma Co-op, and I keep going to Takoma, but Moms and Takoma Co-op, both moms are everywhere. Moms have for bulk food, you can bring in your jar, weigh it, and get food from the lentils and stuff like that. So there's all that. So I'm trying to think of anything else, but yeah, there's actually some really great resources around here to live greener.
Yeah, and it sounds like the more you look, the more you find the stuff. And I've even I was in Ace Hardware the other day, and I saw some of those Swedish dishcloths that we were talking about. And I feel like, as you said, the power of the purse and what you buy, it's starting to become more and more mainstream, and you're going to see this stuff in really easily accessible locations, which I feel like is a really good sign.
Good sign. I mean, I feel like that's a part of our job, is to push the cultural needle. Even CVS, I guess in a way they're our competitors. But I go in there and now all of a sudden they have green and so our proximity to them is pretty close, and they have a bunch of green products now, but they're not as green as us, but I would say we're definitely greener, and there's a little greenwashing going on there, but they're trying to have like bamboo toilet paper, which we have also. But theirs is wrapped in plastic, ours is wrapped in paper. but they're feeling it. I mean, public policy, a lot of times I think one of the mistakes we make in the environmental movement is to just push policy. Public opinion always, influences policy. And if public opinion believes that, for instance, recycling is a real thing, then they're going to vote in recycling, which is what's happening right now, right? And so when you're actually, if you're actually buying products that are circular in the first place, then you're pushing it in the real green direction.
Right. Okay, last question. What's next for FullFillery? What either products that you're excited about that are coming online, or new moves for the store? What are you excited about that's coming up?
Well, we're open more hours now, so that's actually awesome. A huge benefit. We're open on Sundays 10 to 4, which we were open just 10 to 3 before, and then Thursdays and Fridays we're open 11 to 7, which is new for us because we were only open till 5 before. So people are asking us to open more hours. We're trying to, as much as we can with our staff, open as much as we can. So that's very exciting. The other thing is we're going to have a refill station, probably not till June, but we'll have a refill station where people, because right now what we have is a return bottle program, right? If you give the bottle, but people have been asking for a refill. That was a little tricky because a lot of times even those refill places like Mom's or the Co-op, they're still getting those products in a bigger plastic thing. So we're trying to avoid that by getting those things made locally. So we're kind of working on it. So that's what's our holdup on our end. But we will be doing a refill station, and then some things in the far future we hope to get just have like a used cloth diaper, like people could drop off cloth diapers and go later in the so, but that's
that's big.
I probably shouldn't talk about that because that's like further down, but like we're just trying to get the refill station right now up. Totally. You can see we got some things up here for it, so we're just trying to, it's we are a small business, so we're working as best we can, as fast as we can, to be as green as we can.
Definitely. Well, that's really exciting. Thank you so much to Rini Saha of FullFillery, and thank you to all of our viewers and listeners today. Make sure that you visit ChesapeakeFamily.com for local up-to-date information on home, health, and living for today's Maryland parent. This episode will be archived on ChesapeakeFamily.com in both video and podcast format. And make sure to join us next week as we continue our sustainability series. We're going to be talking with Polly Bart of Green Builders. I'm Janet Jefferson with Chesapeake Family Life and Third Floor Views. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks.